Welcome into the On3 studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the inside scoop, and the days in the season are numbered, but as soon as the season ends, recruiting season begins, and we're going to cover it all today on this episode of the Inside Scoop. And as always on a Monday, we are live. We are alive. It's a beautiful day to be here talking recruiting. Now, we didn't see as much action this weekend as we did last weekend, but it's coming. I promise. So, okay, let's take a look right now at where the top 10 stands as of Monday morning, November 20th. Dogs still on top. You got Ohio State there at 2, Florida State in there at 3, Bama 4. Florida slid last week from 3 to 5, but they sort of stabilized things. They're at 5. Oregon at 6. Texas jumped into the top 10 last week. They sit at 7. And Texas A&M, their slide from 6 to 8 stops right there at number 8 after the firing of Jimbo Fisher. Then we got Oklahoma 9, Notre Dame at 10. All right, we're going to get it started here in a second, but let me know where you're watching from. Like literally, where are you watching the Inside Scoop right now? Are you at the airport? Are you at the school drop-off line? Are you in court? Comment section below. Let me know. And ideally, you're getting paid because I'm at work getting paid. I want you guys to also get paid to watch the Inside Scoop. And only way you can do that is if you're at work on the clock. So clock in, lock in with the Inside Scoop. Anyway, hit subscribe. Look at this. We're almost to 25K. I think we can get there today. This page is growing. It's insane. Having a lot of fun doing it with you guys. So hit subscribe. All right. Like I said, much more action on the way, and I mean it. 4-star Cam Mikell from Statesboro, Georgia. He'll announce his decision on Thursday. Yep, Thanksgiving. So why is this important? Well, it means a lot to a lot of teams. It could be Deion Sanders' last and only shot at signing a top 100 recruit in the 2024 cycle. You see, Cam Mikell, he's one of the best two-way players in the country, ranked at number 91 overall in the industry rankings. On3 has him a little bit higher at number 60 overall. And he's listed a top 5, but I think this really comes down to just 3 teams: Colorado, Georgia, and Tennessee. Now, I did think Texas A&M was a legit threat before the firing of Jimbo Fisher, but not anymore. All right, so early on this one, I thought Cam Mikell was going to stay in state, go to Georgia, and play DB. But then he starts getting recruited on both sides of the football. Colorado gets traction with him. They bring him in on a visit. Then it was Tennessee at one point this season that was trending. Right now, I'm not sure where he's going to end up. We're going to have Chad Simmons. He's the expert here at On3. He's going to come on to discuss. But you guys are experts too. So let me know in the comment section below, where's Cam Mikell going to end up? We're also going to hit on Jordan Seatan today, the big offensive tackle from IMG Academy, the number 1 rated offensive tackle in America. You guys know, you followed his recruitment here at the Inside Scoop. He's taken a ton of visits. And this weekend, though, he was in Knoxville, Tennessee for his official visit. Now, before he left town, though, he dropped a top 7, narrowed his list of teams down to just 7: Tennessee, Oregon, Colorado, Maryland, Florida, Ohio State, and Alabama. Those are the teams that make the cut. But I see 4 teams here with a legit shot to sign the 6'6", 290-pound big man. We're going to break it all down. Chad's going to be on for that one as well. Let me know, comment section below, where do you guys think Jordan Seaton's going to end up? All right, what else do we got to hit on? One more big name, and that's George McIntyre. And he was also in Knoxville this weekend. We talked a lot last week about Bryce Underwood, as we should. He's the number 1 quarterback in the 25 class. But today we're focusing on the number 2 quarterback in that class, and that's George McIntyre out of Nashville, Tennessee. In his recruitment, he hasn't cut his list down officially or not, but I think it really right now, I think he's dialed into 3 teams: Tennessee, Alabama, LSU. But this weekend, after he was leaving Tennessee, he said some things that make me think we're closing in on a decision. Now, full disclosure, I've already put in a prediction for George McIntyre. We're going to have Chad Simmons on for that one as well. I'm going to see if he agrees with my pick. Spoiler alert, he does not. Okay, big show today. We'll also talk Auburn. They're coming off that embarrassing loss to New Mexico State. How does that impact recruiting? Did Auburn blow it for 5-star wide receiver Cam Coleman? I'm going to bring in Auburn insider Cole Pinkston to talk all about that. All right, let's get the show started. Coach Prime and the Buffaloes' losing season cost them a shot at one of the best two-way players in America. This week, 4-star Cam Mikell is set to make a final decision, and I got Director of Recruiting from On3, Chad Simmons, here to break it all down. So Mikell, you guys are familiar with him if you watch the Inside Scoop. He's from Statesboro, Georgia. He's a top 100 prospect, ranked number 91 overall, 6 foot 185, and has teams from all around the country hoping to land him on Thursday. So before we get into it, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're almost to 25K. I appreciate you guys. I love it. Hit subscribe. All right, let's get Chad Simmons, Director of Recruiting here at On3. Chad, Mikell set to decide November 23rd, Thanksgiving Day. I want to bring you on and let's get into it. Who are the finalists, in your opinion, for this recruitment?
Yeah, I think Cam came out with top 6, if I remember correctly, Josh, when he announced his commitment date and everything was set for the 23rd, Thanksgiving Day. But I think, we talked about the tiers before with different recruits. And I think, in that top tier, I think it has been for some time, Colorado, Georgia, and Tennessee. He has a lot of offers from schools across the country. Coaches continue to reach out from different places and that are not Boulder, Athens, or Knoxville. But I think those are the main 3 to watch just a few days out.
All right. So do you he's a two-way player. Everybody's interested in him. He's very intriguing on both sides of the ball. But where do you think he stars on the college level?
It's been trending for a couple of months now towards the offensive side of the ball, Josh. I think when things got started, he was a cornerback, even maybe a nickel guy, a versatile DB in a lot of people's eyes, including Georgia. Colorado has talked about him being a two-way guy, a.k.a. Travis Hunter. But Tennessee, what put them, I think, in a great position from the beginning is they were one of the first schools to offer him as a wide receiver. I think now other schools have kind of joined that, including Georgia. And that's kind of helped them, the in-state school, get back in the race, kind of shifting things towards the offensive side. Even earlier this season, as a senior at Statesboro, he started out playing defense all the time, offense part-time. By the end of the season, he's playing quarterback and receiver and returning kicks and playing defense half the time. So in his mind, he wants to play offense. He's a big-time playmaker. So I think wherever he ends up, he will end up having the ball in his hands to start with.
Chad, did Colorado's season, because at one point the Buffaloes seemed like they had a lot of traction with Mikell. He was there for an official visit. His cousin committed, Amontre Bradford, who's teammates with him at Statesboro, Georgia High School. It just seemed like Mikell was right on the verge of making a decision. And of course, Colorado's season goes downhill. Do you think that cost them a shot at the two-way player?
I don't know if it cost them, Josh, to be specific just about the record of what's happened this season from the start to finish under Coach Prime and Deion Sanders in that program. But, I do think he's mentioned in the past about being part of rebuilding a program, building a program up to compete as a national contender. I think that, appealed to him at Colorado. I do think one thing that's always been, according to sources, in the back of his mind is, does he want to go that far away from home, or does he want to play in the SEC like a Georgia or Tennessee that's much closer, easier for his family to get to, whether it be a home or an away game, playing at a school like that in the Southeastern Conference. So I don't know if the record or performance of Colorado really hurt their chances in the end. It may have had some type of an impact, but I think location was the biggest hurdle from the beginning for Coach Prime in that program with a guy like Mikell.
All right. So as I said, he's going to make his decision on Thanksgiving, November 23rd. We're just a few days away. And if you check the recruiting prediction machine at On3, it is in heavy favorite of the Georgia Bulldogs. Chad, final question. Do you agree with where the RPM is trending right now for Mikell as we're just about 3 or 4 days out?
Yeah, I do, Josh. I think George has done a great job to get back in this. I mean, he's always been high on Georgia, but Georgia was all defense at the very beginning. He loves Fran Brown. He loves Brian McClendon. He loves the offensive firepower at Georgia and the guys he would get to play with at the University of Georgia. If you were to ask me this 2 months ago and that RPM read the same, I would have disagreed completely, saying I thought Tennessee had the best shot. They're not ruled out, but he was supposed to be in Knoxville this weekend. He did not make that trip. He was at Colorado a couple weeks ago, been at Georgia as well. I like where Georgia sits a few days out. I don't think he's told any school, hey, I'm coming or anything like that just yet, but I do like where Georgia's at right now heading into that Thursday decision.
All right. Well, Chad Simmons, thank you for dropping by the Inside Scoop and taking us behind the scenes of Cam Mikell's recruitment.
Anytime.
Tennessee's most important remaining recruiting target was in Knoxville on Saturday for the Volunteers' big visit weekend. Who am I talking about? Five-star offensive tackle Jordan Seatan, the #1 rated offensive tackle in America, took an official visit to Tennessee over the weekend. In this video, we're going to find out where Tennessee stands, who are the main contenders, and what is next for the five-star offensive tackle as he closes in on a big decision that's going to impact a bunch of teams. So before we get into it, though, I need you to hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We got a lot more updates on Jordan Seatan coming. All the five-star recruits, actually. There's major developments breaking all the time as we close in a National Signing Day. Hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get into it. Let's bring on Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons. And Chad, on Friday, Jordan Seatan did something. He dropped a top 7. Before his official visit to Tennessee, he dropped a top 7. That included Tennessee, Oregon, Colorado, Maryland, Florida, Ohio State, and Alabama. Chad, you wrote the story. You talked to him. Any surprises here in this top 7?
Maybe, going into that, maybe that Oklahoma was not on there. There were still talks as of last week, that they may go to Oklahoma this coming weekend after Thanksgiving for an official visit. So to see Oklahoma left off, maybe a little bit surprising, but just, timing didn't work out. They have a great connection there and all that. But Oklahoma maybe, being left out maybe was the biggest, if there was a surprise. Maryland does a good job of at least staying in the race for a lot of guys up there on the East Coast, that part of the country. And that's a local program for him. So they're there remaining in the race, but really no big shockers or surprises overall, other than Oklahoma maybe not being on the list any longer.
All right. Looking at that top 7, maybe you have a differing opinion, but in my opinion, I think there's 4 teams here that have a legit shot at landing Jordan Seatan. My 4 teams are Tennessee, Oregon, Ohio State, and Alabama. Now, I got Florida just outside that group. I think I need to see Seatan back in Gainesville one more time for me to put Florida into that top. I don't want to call it a top 4, but the 4 in that top tier that I think Jordan Seatan has the best shot at signing with. How do you break down this top 7?
Yeah, no, I agree with that for the most part. I mean, I wrote something about Seatan earlier on Sunday, basically naming the 5 schools you just mentioned. I think Colorado and Maryland are on the outside looking in. I think Florida definitely has done a good job with him with the 2 O-line coaching thing. Will that change? There's been some buzz about maybe Napier changing that strategy and hiring a full-time special teams guy. So would that have an impact? But he does like the relationships at Florida. But I agree, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, of course, Tennessee, where he's at this weekend, I think all are very strong contenders. I would put, maybe the 3 that I hear the most about continuously are Ohio State, Oregon, and Tennessee. But you can't ever rule out Alabama. And he has great connections with that staff at Florida as well.
No, and if you remember back, I think it was in September, Jordan Seatan was on this show. And at the time, he named Alabama his leader. Now, he has gone back and said since then that everybody's on equal footing. And you can tell, he's being a little political as he closes in on a decision. But, well, there's one caveat, I think, in that 4 that I listed, and that was Ohio State. I think he obviously needs to get to Columbus in order for them to have a legit shot. And I do think he will get to Columbus. But, Chad, has he actually rescheduled that date yet?
At the time we shoot this, to my knowledge, no, Josh. Obviously, they're still up in the air about when they can get there. Also, when Ohio State's available. Obviously, they play on the road this coming week at Michigan. If they win that game, they play in the Big Ten Championship the following weekend. So, there's still a lot of moving pieces there. I do think it is likely, like what you said, that he does get back to Columbus for an official visit. And that'll be key. I know he likes Justin Fry a lot. He likes the program. They have history of development on the offensive line position. And a key thing for Jordan is the school he thinks he can step on campus and make an immediate impact. He doesn't want to be that guy that gets just in the rotation per se or plays a little bit late in games or whatnot his freshman year. His plan is to go in, make an impact, 3 years later, get drafted. So I think he wants to be that Caden Proctor, of Alabama this year as a true freshman, to slide right in and have a chance to start or play a lot of meaningful snaps right away.
Yeah, he's ready to go for sure. December 20th is the early signing day. Now, Jordan Seaton hasn't set an exact date, but he has told me, he's told you that he could end up and most likely will make a decision on that day. Do you think he'll take any other visits? I mean, I know we mentioned Ohio State, but what other visits could he end up taking between now and that decision date?
Yeah, right now, I think based on what I've gathered, he would like not to take any more trips. Him and his circle have been pretty busy on the road the last few months, and they were hoping to get to Ohio State, already. It didn't work out, and kind of be done with visits, by December 1st, and really take that month for critical in-home visits, having coaches in to lay out their plan one more time, give their message one more time. So, I wouldn't rule out, like an unofficial trip somewhere just to get back on campus, maybe ask a few questions. But right now, I think they would prefer to get that Ohio State trip in and then really sit down and crunch things down and figure out what's the right fit for him, what's the best place for him, come whether it's December 20th or somewhere around that early signing period.
Yep. Well, he's in Knoxville this weekend. As we tape, he's still on campus in Knoxville. We think he'll take another trip to Ohio State. I'm sure there's going to be a couple twists and turns in this one before that decision date happens. Chad Simmons, thanks for dropping by and breaking down this Jordan Seaton recruitment.
Thank you.
Number 2 ranked 2025 quarterback George McIntyre left Tennessee this weekend, and it sounds like he's ready to end his recruitment. In this video, I'm bringing on Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons to go behind the scenes of McIntyre's recent comments. But first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. There's some major developments happening, and we got you covered. I want you to be a part of it, so hit subscribe for me, please. Okay. Let's bring on Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons for more on this. Chad, leaving Tennessee yesterday, McIntyre had this to say about what could be next for him. Quote, "Probably will be my last couple of visits. I don't think I need to go on any junior days. I feel like I've seen everything." So, Chad, I'm guessing a decision will likely come sometime after Bryce Underwood. So we're looking at like January, maybe early February, where George McIntyre, the number 2 rated quarterback, could come off the board. Who do you think are the main teams involved here right now?
Yeah, obviously Tennessee in-state program has been there, countless times. Was back this weekend, got there Friday night, spent some time with coaches, the team, other recruits, stuff like that over the weekend. And then, of course, you have Alabama and LSU. He squeezed a visit in to UCLA as well this season. And they're on the list. I think FIU as well. He has connections there, has been there for a game too. But I think the 3 we've always talked about remain the 3 to watch, and that's LSU, Alabama, and Tennessee, Josh.
Do you think that there's any chance, because he says it'll probably be my last couple of visits. Now, I think he could be done with visits altogether, but do you think there's any chance that he shows up on one of those teams' campuses between now and when he makes his final decision?
Yeah, there's definitely talk about him getting back to LSU this coming weekend for their final home game. I'm not sure if that's 100% locked in, but that's definitely been on his radar for some times. And if he does that, that will give him one last and a second look this season at LSU, putting him on campus in Baton Rouge, Tuscaloosa, and Knoxville twice this fall to get a good idea, fan base, offensive scheme, time with coaches. He talks to players a lot to get the full feel for what he would be going into at one of those programs. So I do think he could get back to LSU. And if he does, I think that's it for George before he makes that decision.
Yeah, and, LSU right now looking really good for Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback in the country. Now the number 2 quarterback is also interested in LSU. All right, so we'll put that aside for now. I got another interesting quote that McIntyre said as he spoke to VolQuest before he left Tennessee when they were playing to Georgia. Quote, "I would just say the competitive nature and the winning trajectory of the school." McIntyre said, "I feel like home is where the heart is, so wherever my heart may stand in the next couple of months." Chad, let's break this down. How do you apply that quote to the teams that he's interested in right now?
Look, man, George is smart. He really chooses his words wisely. He knows what to say to kind of leave himself an out, but not give too much away to make it sound really good. Look, I think you can look at it, all three of the schools we talked about, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, could all fit into that quote. You talk about winning trajectory. Obviously, I think, if it's not Georgia, you think about Alabama over the last decade of what they've done, from winning national championships, SEC championships. LSU came off a national title in 2019. They had the Heisman frontrunner and Jaden Daniels this year. And then you have home where the heart is. I mean, he's very comfortable with the University of Tennessee. Heupel took them to 11 wins last year. On the football field, took them to a big-time bowl game and knocked off schools like Alabama and Florida and LSU in one season. So I think all three of those schools kind of fit into this. I think if you look at Georgia's, based on what I've been picking up from intel and sources, his best relationships might be with those at the University of Tennessee, with Heupel, Coach Halsley, the offensive coordinator, just the people on the staff in that program. He's close also to Tommy Rees at Alabama, going back to his Alabama Notre Dame days. Joe Sloan at LSU. He sees the offensive fit, I think, in all three programs. So based on that quote you just said from George, I think all three schools can fit into that.
Man, yeah, I do. It's almost like an astrology reading. Like from wherever your perspective is, you could apply that to your team. Now, I have a pick in for George McIntyre to Alabama that I've had for a couple months now. And when I read it, I can certainly see how that would make me feel confident in my pick to Alabama. But if you're a Tennessee fan, read it. If you're an LSU fan, you can apply that to how you see it. So we're just going to have to see what happens down this stretch. Like you said, Chad, he could show up at LSU for another visit. He could show up on another campus. So we just got to see. But it sounds like we're about 2 months away from finding out where George McIntyre is going to go. So let me know, comment section below, where do you guys think George McIntyre is going to go? Me and Chad? Well, Chad, you haven't put a pick in yet, have you?
I have not. I'm not ready to
closing in on it.
I'm not ready to join the Josh Newberg train yet with Alabama just yet. Now, I think Bama is definitely a strong contender. They definitely have a lot of things playing in their favor to land George McIntyre. I mean, the Reese, connection. He knows Ty Simpson, has talked to him a lot about the team, what it's like day to day in Tuscaloosa. But again, I may slightly lean towards Tennessee coming off this last trip. Yeah. But again, I think an interesting thing too, man, Nico, redshirting this year likely now. Does that keep him on campus longer? Does that impact Georgia's decision? Does he care about early playing time? I think there's a lot of things he's still trying to figure out. But I think Alabama and Tennessee may have a slight edge over LSU. But if he gets back to LSU, let's see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Lots of craziness still to come in this recruitment. Chad Simmons, thanks for dropping by the Inside Scoop and breaking down George McIntyre's recruitment. Auburn had a lot going for them in recruiting heading into the weekend, but how will the Tigers' mind-blowing 31-10 loss to New Mexico State impact Auburn's recruiting momentum? In this video, we'll get Auburn Live insider Cole Pinkston on the show to see if the Tigers blew it for five-star wide receiver Cam Coleman. Is proof of concept going to bite Auburn on the recruiting trail? Plus, what the overall impact is on Auburn's recruiting efforts as we're under 2 months to the early signing period. But first, Auburn fans, hit the subscribe button to the On3 Recruits channel. Stay locked in as we take you on this roller coaster ride to signing day. All right, let's bring on my guy, Cole Pinkston of Auburn Live. And Cole, man, was Saturday more about a lack of focus or lack of talent for Auburn?
Well, when you look at New Mexico State and Auburn, that talent favors Auburn. It's going to. That's just the way that it's been. But look, New Mexico State was hot coming in. We knew that. They were on a 6-game winning streak. All of these things, I think Auburn was not motivated, depending on, what plays into that, what factors into that. But combination of all those things end up in Auburn, getting beat in every aspect of the game.
All right. So you and I, we've covered recruiting for a long time, and there's two things that play into it. You have the communication side, and then you have the on-field side, what happens on the field. So how much of Auburn's recruiting success is based on communication and relationships versus how much of it is going to be based off of proof of concept or what the recruit sees on the field?
Yeah, I look at it as like when you buy a house, you have principal and interest, right?
Okay.
And your interest is really high, but it goes down over time. Your principal starts coming up. Well, in year one, in my opinion, proof of concept is important, but it's not the ultimate factor. Okay. I think communication with these guys and getting out in front of it, saying, look, the way we are right now, unless we have you, we might drop a game here and there. That's part of a rebuild. So they're doing that really well. And every recruit, they seem to exude that. So that's what we're hearing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. You can use that in year one, but when you try to do that in year three, it takes on a different tone. So Hugh Freeze utilizing that little wild card that he has in his pocket, that's a good play. So ultimately, though, how does this loss affect recruiting? What I mean by that is Auburn not going to be maybe as offensive going out for these big flips toward the end, going to have to play a little bit more defense, or does this not really push them off their stride for the 2024 class?
Yeah, I call it a minor setback. I think it is a minor setback because that's a tough loss. That's something that you have to work around. You have to go, look, don't lose trust in us just because we lost a game like this that we weren't supposed to lose. I do think they're going to continue to play offense with it and go after the flip targets. But, they have to start with reassuring the guys they already have in the class. Hey,
right.
You trust us. Here's why you trust us. Don't look too far into that. We got Alabama next. There's so many ways to spin it and sell it. I say spin it. Sell it is the better word because that's what you're doing the whole time anyway. I mean, this was the plan the whole time. We knew what was possible this season because the staff got out in front of it with us, speaking from a recruit standpoint.
Right.
So I think that they've done a great job laying the foundation up to this point so that when something like this happens, it's understood. You need me, right? You need me.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we need you. And to Auburn's credit, hey, no decommitments in the wake of that shocking loss. So it looks like, they're just going to continue moving on and trying to sell the program, like you said. So I got to ask, because 5-star wide receiver Cam Coleman showed up on campus. It was a bit of an unexpected visit. Anytime the Texas A&M commitment shows up on the Plains, it's good news, unless you lose a game like this. So does Auburn still have a shot at flipping Cam Coleman?
Yes, I think Auburn does have a shot. I've thought all along that Auburn was going to be in this to the end no matter what, and I still believe that now. And, we watched him, observed him while he was at the game, while he was in the recruiting lounge and doing all these different things. And, he seemed to be really enjoying himself. And I want to reiterate too, I know that recruits and fans see through a different lens. Okay. They just don't view things the same way. And that has become very clear to me in covering recruiting. I don't know exactly what he's thinking, but I do know that Auburn has done everything that it can to land him. And they're in a great position to do it. He's right down the road. There's a lot of factors here. They need him. He could probably start year one. I do think Auburn's got a great shot.
All right. Do you think if the results were different on Saturday, maybe Cam Coleman could have flipped, or do you think this whole thing all along was going to be a final decision at the end?
The number one thing I've learned about Cam Coleman is that he is almost impossible to predict.
We know.
So I don't have a clear answer, but it's possible. But I think he is wanting to take his time, and we know how big that relationship is with Damian Craig, who's still at A&M right now, even though Jimbo Fisher's not there. I really believe that relationship is much bigger than what impact Fisher had. So with him still being there and him being in his ear, maybe he's telling him he's going to stay on staff. We don't know. I say that this one probably was going to drag on a little bit anyway. That was the gut feeling that I had anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Coleman has still remained committed. He has not reopened his recruitment officially, but he is looking around. I think Auburn, maybe Florida State, but I think Auburn is probably the main player if there is to be a flip. I think that the Tigers are in a great position, and he's expected back on the Plains for the Iron Bowl. So we will see what happens. Cole Pinkston, thank you for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.